Do you know that Zambia has a land titling program? And so far they've issued over 100,000 title deeds. In today's video, we're going to be sitting down with Mr. Emmanuel Tembo, and he is the project manager for the National Land Titling Program. He's going to tell us all about this program, what it's about, what they've managed to achieve, and of course the challenges they've faced along the way. This is going to be a really interesting conversation that you don't want to miss. If we haven't met, my name is Natasha Chumia. I'm the founder of Diaspora Connect, and on this channel we like to give you information and inspiration on the Zambian real estate market. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit that notification button so you don't miss any of our videos. Now let's get into our conversation with Mr. Tembo. Mr. Tembo, good morning.
Good morning, Natasha.
Thank you so much for giving us time. We know how busy you are.
No, we are very appreciative of this opportunity to discuss matters of national land titling. So I'm very pleased to be here. And thank you for having us.
Thank you. So let's get into it. What exactly is the land titling project? You know, our audience is mostly in the diaspora. But they do have a lot of friends and relatives here, and matters of land affect all of us, no matter where we are. So what exactly is the land titling project?
Yes, thank you very much. The National Land Titling Project is a national Ministry of Lands or government project which seeks to empower all our people who own a piece of land with a title. That's the overarching objective. However, obviously, we want to also sanitize the land market to ensure that all land that is not, which is informal, must come into the land market. We know where it is, and then we title it. So, in a broader sense, that's what it is. It also seeks to build that, if you like, the register of all land in Zambia. But the main focus has been in the low-cost areas, because obviously those are the areas which have not been titled before. Yeah, so basically that's what our program is about.
Okay, so you mentioned sanitizing the land market, and you've also talked about these low-cost areas. So maybe you can just say a bit more about what necessitated the birth of the project. What made it come about?
Yeah, I think there was a recognition in 2015 thereabouts, when government was trying to look at auditing the land. We recognized that in order to audit the land, we need to identify who is sitting where in the whole country. And based on that, the National Land Titling Program was set up. And then it was realized that a lot of things need to be done in order to achieve that objective, or overall objective of a land audit. So in 2015, it was then designed, the National Land Titling Program was designed, and it only began to take effect in 2017 when government approached the World Bank to assist them pilot some areas. 2 areas were piloted in 2017, Madido and in Kamala South.
Okay.
After which, in 2018, we went back to the World Bank and asked to see if we can be assisted. Unfortunately, the World Bank said, no, we cannot because of funding limitations. We then were approached by Medich, land governance, to do a pilot in Lusaka now, a fully fledged pilot, so that we can test like a proof of concept on doing systematic land titling. Ordinarily, we do what is known as sporadic titling, where we basically just allow for, what can you say, we allow you to come to ministry, and you apply, and you as an individual then can be assisted to get the title. However, in the systematic land titling program, what then we designed in 2018 was to ensure that we go into an area, what we would call a demarcation area, and systematically capture the information for the whole area and issue the titles to everyone in that area.
I think that's so key because that really is the first step in formalizing some of our informal settlements, and also I feel it greatly enhances the real estate sector because now we have properties that are actually on title. So which are these areas that you have now gone into?
Yeah, so essentially we started off with Lusaka, as I said, and in 2020 the ministry signed an agreement with Medich to now roll out nationally this program. And so we went then to the Copper Belt. We've done all the towns on the Copper Belt. We've done Solowezi. We've gone down south. Now we are working in Livingstone, Zimba, Kalomo, Choma. We are here to start in Pemba and Mazabuka.
So it's really a nationwide program.
It is a nationwide program.
Okay.
Obviously, we started firstly with along the line of rail, for obvious reasons that most of the properties, most of the compounds would happen to be along the line of rail.
Now, you mentioned Medici several times. I know people will be questioning to say, who is Medici? What is Medici?
Yes, so Medici is a service provider for the government. It's a non-profit American organization that was hired in 2020. Based off the proof of concept that I mentioned in 2018,
yes.
Where they initially tested work in Lusaka. They did about 5 compounds in Lusaka. Based on those, then in 2020, the government agreed that we could work with Medich, which is an American-based company. So they are the service providers. They're the ones who are actually running, or the foot soldiers, if you like, of our program.
Okay, right. And then in terms of some of these low-cost areas that you've been going into, I know that we've got different types of documents that can relate to ownership, let me say. We've got land records. Some people have letters of recommendation. So how have you been working with that context or those documents?
A very important question, actually. When we go into an area, first of all, in terms of the process, we ask the council to help us identify the areas where there's critical need for titling to be done. So they will then identify these as demarcation areas. And so now, when you go into most of these areas, because of their informality, what you see is that most of the people will not have any proper documents. They will have a small piece, some would have a small piece of paper written to say, I, Emmanuel Tembo, has sold this property to this one. And that's the only document they have. In an ideal situation, what would be required would be a document that comes from the council which says that this person is the one who's sitting on this piece of land, and therefore you can then offer. The Commissioner of Lands is then written to. But going back to your question, we have those funny documents. We do have occupants licenses.
Yes.
These are documents that the councils would have given to the property owners. That is normally in an area which has already been identified and, if you like, regularized by the council.
Right.
We also have land records. Those have been phased away in most of the councils. So whichever document then, and quite often I would say that because we're going to areas where there has been no document, what we then have will be someone coming with maybe a bill from ZESCO.
Okay.
And say, oh, look, I've been paying, and this is my property. Although we have had cases where someone comes with that bill, because as a tenant, you can also be paying. And so we have to be careful when we deal with those kind of things. But yeah, those are some of the documents we find, and we use them now as proof of ownership. But we vet it with the council.
Okay.
So that we are sure that we are not giving the wrong person on that piece of land. However, also we should say that as we do that vetting process, we are also helping the councils.
Right.
Because they would not have known who's actually sitting there in the first place. Because people just squat in those areas. So we help, if you like, sanitize and regularize some of these areas.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you bring up. You know, all these documents floating around, some just on a scrap of paper, some are now being phased out. I think that's why we see a lot of land disputes, land conflicts, and also for our friends in the diaspora, it's how they end up losing money at times, because someone can hold themselves out to be the owner, but they're not. Now, in terms of the land titling project, have you, are there challenges of people getting the wrong title deeds? I know some people would be concerned to say that, you know, what if I'm actually renting out my property and the next thing my tenant has title to my property?
Yeah, and that's a valid concern. And we've had cases, I'll admit, I'll be first to admit that we've had cases such as those. However, I mean, on the scale of 1 to 100, it will be 0.0001%.
Okay.
We ensure to a greater extent that the rightful owner is the one we capture because of the processes that we undertake.
Okay.
So maybe I can mention briefly that process.
Yes.
So first of all, we identify that land, as I said, together with the council. And then we carry out some due diligence in terms of what is existing already on title. So if they gave me, say, we want North Mid to be done.
Right.
We would then identify within North Mid who already has title.
Okay.
So those ones we sift them out. And then the next thing is, okay, we now go onto the ground and do the enumeration. So we do an enumeration, which is like a census, door to door for each property in that demarcation area. When we've done that, we prepare a map which we submit to the council.
Okay.
And when we've done that, we then, before we submit to the council, we go and do community verification, where we take that map, present it in a community school or at a church, whatever space we have, and identify and ask each one we have captured to verify that this is their piece of land. The neighbors also must verify that indeed this is the owner of that land. Obviously, in our circumstance, it could be possible that the neighbor is not very familiar with the owners. That is a known fact. But in the main, that kind of community verification helps us to finally say, okay, this is the owner of this property. So when we do that community verification, then we submit that plan together with a list of all the people that we have captured to the council. The council then makes the approval and submits now to the Commissioner of Lands to say this is the list of people who you can go ahead and issue offer letters. And then we go back to the community now with the Commissioner's offer letters that have been prepared and issue those offer letters.
Okay, so it's quite methodical.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So you mentioned that first you identify the area, then you have the mapping process and the verification process, and then the offer letters from Commissioner of Lands. Yes. And then what happens after that to get to that process of title?
Yeah, so that's where now we have issues around the fact that in order for a title to be produced, payment must be made. And these are statutory fees. And so the requirement is that the landowner is required to make a minimum payment to allow for a title to be produced. The minimum payment for the low-cost areas is 1,000 kwacha. And then they are allowed to pay within a 3-year period to finish off the balance.
Okay.
But what happens is that immediately the 1,000 kwacha is paid, we have what we call a national land titling system, which automatically then generates a title. When the payment is made, the chief registrar then approves to say, okay, this one has made payment, and we have checked the record, the documentation is okay. And so again, this is done systematically within the whole demarcation area. And so now the challenge obviously is that when we ask for payment, it is no longer systematic.
I see.
Because it's only those who are able to pay who will then proceed to title.
So is this a major challenge you've been facing, that people are not actually paying the statutory fees?
Yes, one of the major challenges. So if I give you for instance, the statistics, we have issued something like 245,000 offer letters across the work we've done. And we have issued 116,000 titles. The balance, which is almost half of is because people haven't made the payment but this is work that has been done. We have completed the process. It's now just waiting for the people to make payment. I mean, we understand that obviously people might be constrained in terms of finances and the like, but I think we want to see a way in which something ought to be done to ensure that ultimately people get their titles, but also that record we have captured already can go into the national system, into the National Land Register.
Okay. So maybe then you can just touch on the outcome so far of the project. I know you've touched on it briefly, but I think they're quite significant. So if you can mention again, what have been the outputs of the project?
Yeah, so essentially in terms of the outputs, obviously the first one would be the number of titles. We are held against that. The number of titles that we issued, we were, at the time of starting of this project, it was assumed that we would get 4 million titles.
Oh wow, that was the target.
Ambitious, yes. 4 million titles in 7 years. Down the line, we've seen that we have a number of challenges, and those challenges rather inhibit the numbers. So as far as the numbers are concerned, we've done 114,000 titles. Look at it from the context that in this country, the number of titles since independence were standing at 250,000.
Wow.
So we've done 114,000. So in that context, I can be proud to say that we have achieved something.
Yes.
However, against the target of 4 million, it's a drop in the ocean,
right.
so to speak.
Right.
But so those are the numbers. We have covered, that has gone physically into the areas. We have done 350,000 properties. So we've gone, enumerated those numbers.
Right.
So if we were to convert that, we would be sitting at 350,000 titles. Yeah, so basically I think that would be the case. I think in terms of raising revenue for government, because ultimately this is also an expectation that there has to be revenue generated out of this. There is an amount of revenue that has been raised out of this exercise. But I think for me, the main focus is to ensure that all our people have secure title wherever they are sitting. Absolutely. And that we formalize the whole land market, as I said.
Yeah. So I just want to end with this question now, which is how have you seen people and communities be empowered as a result of having their title deeds for the first time? Yeah.
I'll tell you, when we went, I think last October, we went to Kabwe, went to Makululu. Makululu is considered to be one of the biggest compounds in Zambia. And when we were issuing titles, one old man said to us, which brought a tear to me, was that he had been in Makululu since 1970, and for the first time he was getting this paper called the title. The emotions that came out of it were immense. Because he's an old man, they've lived there and they never knew that at any one time they would get that document. So for us, I think that is what makes us sleep well at night. But a lot of people are getting title and they're very happy. You go to Bowlen in the compound, you will see that those that have gotten title are more secure. You go to Kalingalinga, you go to Chaisa and all these compounds, we see a lot of happy people who have obtained title. We have some picture there which shows people who have received titles. And so that for us is what makes us happy. My appeal to maybe the diaspora.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Is that, help those communities that, for instance, you might have a relative who requires to pay for a title. Because at the moment, without payment, there's no title. Whatever effort we make, if the person doesn't pay, there will be no title. So if they can be support towards that, we are looking to maybe what we would say a greater thing if we can resource the whole program such that everyone gets title, as they did in Rwanda, for example.
Wow.
They got everyone title, and then we can enable secondary transactions to happen.
Exactly,
So we are arguing with government and seeing how best we can then achieve that.
Right. Mr. Tembo, thank you so much.
Thank you, Natasha, for having us. And we look forward to more engagement in these areas.
And well done for the great work that you're doing.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I hope you found that interview interesting and informative. Owning a home is the most important investment that any of us will ever make. And I really enjoyed listening to the story about that old man who got so emotional about having a title deed to his property. And that's how important this is. So I find it shocking and heartbreaking that over 100,000 Zambians haven't yet made that investment to get their title deeds. So I just want to echo what Mr. Tembo said. If you have a relative here at home who is part of this program and hasn't been able to complete the process due to lack of payment, then please help them to do that. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video by subscribing to our channel and hitting the notification button so you don't miss any videos. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to share it with one other Zambian in your community. Otherwise, go ahead and connect with us on social media. We love to chat with you there. It's bye for now.